My name is Benton Stokes. I'm a former fundamentalist, post-evangelical worship leader, and songwriter. I enjoy wry Manhattans, roller coasters, and road trips, just not all at the same time.
I'm Elaine O'Rourke, and I'm a teacher, an author, and a spiritual coach. I was a philosophy professor and a liberal pastor in a couple of former lives, and these days I love aha moments and not so dry martinis.
We have conversations about life and God with a queer perspective, over cocktails, like you. This is Cocktail Theology. So what is this lovely drink we're having?
Well, it's less murky.
It is less murky.
And that's because it's the last of our murky month of mocktails.
It is,
yes.
it is.
So it is passionfruit pulp, which is not sweet, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Passionfruit syrup,
mm-hmm.
lime peel, lime juice,
okay,
mint, and zero alcohol sparkling wine.
Very nice. All right, let's give it a shot. And by shot, I mean sip. I'm not gonna
You're not gonna shot it.
No.
Okay.
It's good.
Yeah, it is good. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's nice.
I like that.
I like it too. I think the lime peel that you put in there added something significant.
Yeah, I think the lime peel was really important, and the lime. I actually think basically the passion fruit itself, because it's not sweet, and then the lime peel, just all of that just gave it a lot more different kinds of sense, and, you know. So right. No, I like it too. I think it worked.
Yeah, it's nice.
Woohoo! It's not repeatable though, so I hope you enjoy it.
Okay.
I didn't write it. I mean, you know me. I never. Oh, and there's a pinch of salt as well.
Ah, nice. Okay.
Yeah. I never write this stuff down. You know that.
I know we're terrible about that, but we really should.
Yeah, well, you're better about it than I am. But yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know either. So this week we are celebrating, lamenting, commenting upon the timely end of James Dobson, Dr. James Dobson.
We are.
Okay. Would you like to start with this, or shall I dive in?
Sure.
Okay.
And first of all, listeners, forgive my hoarseness. I've been sick for a while, so I'm getting over it. I became familiar with James Dobson probably like mid-90s. Around the time I finished up college and I was delivering pizzas, his show, Focus on the Family, would come on the local Christian station. And sometimes when I was driving pizzas around, I would have it on in the car. And I was going through a little talk radio phase, I guess. So I was listening to sports talk and church talk and whatever talk I could find, I guess. And this was before podcasts, everyone. And so at that time, you know, I didn't take issue with much of what he taught. And taught, I put that in quotes, really, because he was really kind of, by that time, more of a radio personality than he was. You know, he was kind of a Dr. Phil type.
It's an interesting comparison. Go ahead.
I mean.
No. It's an interesting comparison. So
there was more pop than psych.
Right.
By this time, I think, and it only got worse.
Right. Sure.
But during this time, I think I was trying to sort out a lot of things, and was trying to sort of settle for myself what I believed about God and relationships and all kinds of things. I just finished college, and I was in a very sort of liminal phase where I wasn't sure what my next steps were going to be. And
you leaned conservative at that point,
and at that
correct?
point I leaned conservative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I was just taking in a lot of media, and he was one of the things that I would listen to from time to time. And it wasn't really until later that I started to understand really how insidious some of his views were and how pervasive they had become in evangelical circles. Once I was married and we started having kids, his name would come up in conversations in Sunday school and places. He had a book called The Strong-Willed Child. He had another book about marriages that was called Love Must Be Tough. And in these books, he described a very patriarchal household where the male of the home was pretty heavy-handed. And, you know, parenting included breaking the will of a child that was... Yes. Well, any child. Doesn't really matter how willful that child was.
He compared children to animals that needed to be punished in order to learn how to...
Right. Yeah. And so, his name would come up, and we never adopted his parenting styles. I never had one of his books.
Right.
We never went down that road, but we knew people who did.
Yeah.
The one thing that we did listen to was some of the purity culture stuff that he talked about.
Right.
Where he thought it was important that teenagers save themselves for marriage. And that was a view that I had taken when I was in high school. I decided that was something that I wanted to do, and did. And then when it came time for our kids to come around and they were in youth group, we encouraged it, but we didn't say this is something you're going to do. All that to say, Dobson was sort of a presence in evangelical parenting relationships circles for a long time. And for me, that would have been mid-90s through mid-aughts, probably. And so he was always kind of around. One of those people that would show up in politics occasionally because his organization was very politically active, very involved in anti-abortion legislation, lobbying Washington, very against gay marriage, very much in favor of quote-unquote traditional biblical marriage.
Yeah, I admit that I went back and I did some research on him because my basic response to him is so incredibly negative that I needed to go back and see how much of it was memory, how much of it was, I'm using this in big scare quotes, but it's true, leftist propaganda, right? How much of it was based on things he actually said, how much of it was based on things that were said about him, those kinds of things, right?
Sure.
So I wanted to go back. So I went back and did a little research on how he came up and how he came to be, which is why the Dr. Phil reference I find really interesting. And for those of you who don't know Dr. Phil is a therapist who became famous because Oprah Winfrey liked him. And in the last number of years, he's gone way swung to the right. So I think that's a really interesting one. So Dobson started out as a psychology type. He was never ordained.
No.
And I think that's an important piece.
It is. He was never a pastor. He was never ordained.
That's right. Because part of the reason his work was so powerful, and I mean insidious, I think was the word you used, was because he wasn't a pastor. Because it was all couched in psychology, therapology, you know what I mean? And I'm using that deliberately. So he was on staff actually teaching. And he left teaching of psychology when whatever they're called, it must be an APA of some kind, but when they decided that homosexuality was not a disorder.
Ah, okay.
And he disagreed with that so much that he left. That's, I think, an important piece.
Yes.
The other important piece that may be helpful to our listeners in getting kind of a bigger picture of where he was that, he was coming of age at the same time the hippies were coming of age, right? And there were really sort of two directions people went at the extremes during that period. One was toward the hippies, like, the Dr. Spock, like hands off, trying to kind of open it up. And the other was as traditional as you could get, kind of taking the 50s and really running with it.
Really leaning into that, yeah.
Right? So he went that one. And he came out of Nazarene tradition too. So that also...
Oh, I didn't know that.
So that also had that
tells
aspect.
Me a lot, sure.
Right? So he's coming up in a time where he is experiencing a major culture break.
Yeah.
And he is trying to figure out what the heck this culture break's about.
Yeah.
So what he comes with, because, again, in response to Dr. Spock, who was the main kind of new, big scare quotes, new psychology about child rearing on the block, he responded to that. Right,
okay.
Make sense?
Yes.
So it seems from the outside like basically he came Bible psychology. But that wasn't exactly what was happening, right? What was happening was culture, psychology at this pivot point. Psychology goes one direction, so he goes the other to battle against that. For me, when I read that and went, it helped me understand why some of his ways of thinking were so kind of attributed to the Bible, but not biblical in any way.
Oh, okay.
So, for example, the strong-willed child is all about how you need to spank your children.
Yeah.
From the ages of less than 2 to the age of 8. And, his view was the idea that you're breaking the will like you would an animal, okay? Which is absolutely just the opposite of Spock.
Yeah,
Right?
I can see that.
Okay. And what he does, though, is he goes to great pains over the years to say, look, if what's happening is you're coming out angry or you're getting a thrill from it or whatever, you need to stop because that's not what the purpose of this is. So he really did see it as a training mechanism, which, again, says a lot.
Yeah.
Because that's, first of all, the Bible doesn't have children getting spanked by their parents.
Right.
That's not a thing.
Right.
But also that idea that it is a training mechanism is a much more psychological view of it
Sure.
than a biblical view of it.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So it's a little bit like that sense that a lot of people get of they want to make sense out of something. They see it in their God, or they see it in the way that their tradition has taught them about their God. So it gains a truthiness to it that it wouldn't have had it been from their own discovery.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah.
So there's that piece. The other piece that I had thought I remembered, but I wanted to go back and make sure, was so his rise was really started around the late 70s, about the same time that Falwell founded the Moral Majority.
Yes.
So in 1973, Dobson wrote a foreword to a book, and I've forgotten what the book was. It might have been about families, might have been medical, I don't remember exactly. But he comes out basically and says in the foreword, the only reference to abortion in the Bible is actually pro-abortion. It's actually a commandment to someone to abort, right? He says, so there really isn't much to be said about it. So he really was on it as this is not a biblical issue.
Yeah.
Right? 1977, and as he starts getting closer to that movement on the right political wing, that's when his view shifts
Yeah.
to being anti-abortion.
Yeah.
So that marriage, that unholy marriage, talk about an unholy marriage, that unholy marriage of partisan politics
Yeah.
and religious view
Yeah.
blooms in the Moral Majority and blooms in Focus on the Family.
Right.
So for me, Dobson has always been a political figure
Yes.
rather than a religious figure or whatever.
I get that, yeah.
And Focus on the Family was so anti every view of woman or femininity other than this very narrow one that I always was like, okay, that clearly doesn't apply to me. I don't know what to do with this exactly. Because I'm a feminine person, I don't reject the feminine part. But, I am not going to be cleaning the house in pearls and high heels. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
Right? For me, that's Dobson.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioning that he was Nazarene actually helps me understand some of this a little better. Growing up Nazarene myself, the view that I was taught of God was that God was angry a lot. And that God was punitive. One of the things that we talk about a lot is how much our theology informs everything about how we see ourselves, how we see other people, how we understand our place in the world, all that stuff. The things that we understand about God, they bleed into everything else.
Yes, they do.
And I can't help but think that someone like Dobson and like many, many, many other church leaders that I've known, pastors that I've known, when your view of God is that God would be punitive, that God would punish us for something, then it only makes sense that if you see yourself as God's representative in your home, or God's representative in your church, or in your workplace or whatever, then you're going to feel a certain license to be punitive too. One of the more shocking things that Dobson came out and said after the tragedy at Sandy Hook Elementary was that he believed that the absence of God in our classrooms was the cause of this. That the rise of cultural enemies like gay marriage, gay rights, women's rights, abortion, all this stuff, that this was God's response to that. And that God, he really believed that God would punish innocent children and their families because we weren't saying corporate prayer in classrooms, or we weren't posting the Ten Commandments or whatever it was. That's pretty messed up. And it takes a lot, I think, for somebody to get there. I mean, the lack of empathy in that is astounding. So for someone to be considered a leader in the church, because even though he was never ordained, to show such a lack of empathy, and he wasn't the only one. There were plenty of others. To show such a lack of compassion at a time when a community was absolutely devastated. To me, that is just like the most anti-Jesus thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And yet he continued to be an authority in all these things, and respected in some circles, right up until the day he died. But he would come out with these really shocking and extreme views about stuff like that. And it just comes down to, that is how small you think God is.
Yes.
You think God would get so hung up on the idea that kids in an elementary school in Connecticut aren't saying prayers together as a classroom, that he would allow a shooter to come in and just mow them all down.
Right.
That's the kind of God you serve?
Right. And if you think about the tragedy that just happened in Minneapolis as we're recording, where children were shot up in prayer.
Yes.
During prayer.
During prayer.
The only way I think that you could kind of manipulate that view is to say, well, the shooter did not grow up with blah, blah. I mean, there's no other way to get there.
No.
From a psychology point of view, that would be the big scare quotes, correct direction, would be to explain the shooter's screwed upness rather than the children being punished, right? But as soon as you get to that idea that God would willingly slaughter children because a group of other people didn't do what they need to do, there are a few places in the Bible where you could make that argument. But you've also got the whole, Abraham bargaining with God, saying, if we can find one good person, right, which is kind of against that whole idea, right? And once you get to Jesus, it's like, seriously, people, you can't get there from here, right? No. Yeah. The other thing that I remember about Dobson, from just my own experience, as you pointed out, was I've forgotten the language he used for liberated again, that language. So if you're against liberated women, you want women enslaved, right? I mean, just to be, there's no other language. Anyway, but, during the worst of the AIDS crisis, when everybody was saying, and I mean all the people in that group were saying, this is a punishment, da-da-da-da-da. The thing that he said that gave me hope for about a split second was, during all of that, he said that there's no way that gay people choose this. Interesting, right? He said, because why would you choose to be disliked, to be all of these things? But then he went on to say, and to be more vulnerable to disease, and to, you know what I mean? So it's like he went from this, again, this kind of deep true understanding about people, but then went wacky.
Way off the rails,
Way off the rails, Yeah. And again, it's that have to find a way to justify what you're doing. And so there's all this other stuff that has to become kind of tweaked. And again, once it gets locked into partisan politics, it's almost impossible to extricate yourself, because then you have to go to these millions of people who have made you very wealthy and say, I might have gone off the rails a little on that one.
Right. Yeah, we don't hear people backpedaling like that right now.
Not even. I want to also comment on the idea of God that you mentioned. One of the things he said about corporal punishment, about physical punishment, was that after the parent, preferably the father, after the father was finished spanking the child should cry only up to about 5 minutes, because after about 2, they're just doing it for effect. There's some reason. I'll give him some buy on that one. But he said what had to happen immediately afterwards was that once the child had calmed down, the child needed to be hugged and forgiven. So again, there's this idea that God punishes and then God embraces. God punishes, God embraces. You can see where he would have gotten that. But that's it's a weird drawing from the Bible. So it's got to have gone backwards, if you will, rather than forwards into it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Huh. Interesting.
Because again, the whole hug thing, once or twice, maybe.
Yeah.
And if you think about the big hug, the one that we all think of when we think about a father hugging his son, there was no punishment from the father at all.
No.
0.
No. Well, the outcry on social media in the circles that I follow, it was loud and swift when he passed, and people expressing a lot of hurt, people expressing the fear that they still deal with, like adult kids who still have trouble trusting their parents because of the way that they parented in response to Dobson. I mean, it messed up a lot of people, and a lot of, certainly a lot of queer people. The pain that people carry around is significant.
Yeah.
So certainly praying for those who continue to suffer.
Right. Dallas Willard, with whom I don't agree on everything, as you know, made a really good point. And I've forgotten exactly what the context was, but what he was basically saying was that he didn't believe that humans had the capacity to be perfectly just, perfectly, to punish appropriately, that kind of thing. But God did. And so it was better to leave it to God.
Yeah.
Which is to me about humility.
Yeah.
It's about understanding that.
Yeah.
One of the challenges of seeing the Bible as prescriptive rather than descriptive, particularly if you see God's character as prescriptive, is there are very few human beings who are mature enough and stable enough and loving enough and unself-interested enough to do what God does, shrunk down and appropriately.
Yeah.
Right? So even if you believed that spanking your child was the right thing to do, the amount of real character building you'd need to do in yourself before you ever tried to do that, I would argue, is pretty darn close to impossible.
Yeah.
Because we're not that sane.
No, we're not.
We're not that mature. And that's part of the problem.
It is.
Right? Yeah. Is if I say the way God, particularly God's the Old Testament, God behaves is a model for me, as opposed to what Jesus did, who was human, I'm going to mess it up.
Yeah.
God doesn't need humility. That's not a God thing.
Right.
I do.
Yes. Listeners, we would love to hear from you on this. Cocktailtheology.com is where we are. We love getting ideas for cocktails, mocktails, for issues to discuss, conversations to have, questions to ponder. We love hearing from you, and we would love to hear from you about this. If the writings, teachings of Dobson have affected you in any way, we would love to hear from you. And again, want to share prayers with those who have suffered and continue to suffer because of the things that they've gone through.
Amen.
Till next time, friends.
Bye.
Funny how the view can change, how life just seems to rearrange itself, no matter what it was. I don't know how it goes, but look, moving on feels pretty good. Moving on feels
If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a like and hit subscribe wherever you're listening right now. We welcome your comments, questions, and ideas for conversations and for cocktails. Please get in touch with us at our website, cocktailtheology.com. Cocktail Theology is a production of SFS. Our theme song is Moving On Feels Pretty Good, recorded by yours truly, Benton Stokes. You can find my music wherever you stream your favorite artists. Join us next Thursday for another new episode.